Good morning.
Good morning.
I think it's my daily goal that here's what we do. Our dynamic is that I have to try to make you less happy because I think you just have way too much happiness every day. And you have to give me some of yours because I'm way less happy than I
have
should
to be like,
yeah. So we reach
some of my sunshine.
Homeostasis.
Yeah.
Because of this dynamic. So yeah, let's get you sad. What's going on in the news?
That's comforting.
What's going on in the brain?
Kelin, let's try to upset you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess we won't talk about the uplifting topics that were top of mind.
Well, maybe that influences what I need. So
yeah,
I'll just come with it.
Did you see the news story of the dad that jumped overboard off the cruise ship?
Yes,
to save his daughter.
Yeah.
Oh, just saw on Instagram somebody shared a video. It was them in the water, and then this boat kind of came to pick them up and take them back. And oh my God, if your child fell overboard on a cruise ship, would you immediately just jump in?
Yeah, without hesitation.
Yeah, I feel like most of us would be like, it would be like a knee-jerk reaction. You would just do it. And thank God they were both okay. Holy crap, is that scary though? Oh my, like the ocean, like not a swimming pool, the freaking ocean. That was lucky, I think, on their end. But yeah, so there's that. You know, another uplifting thing I noticed this summer. You're going to hate this. You're going to eye roll so hard. So I think when we as humans become used to something, we kind of become a little numb to it. Maybe we don't appreciate the small things anymore. But lucky for me, I had moved out of this area for quite a long time. And now that I am back, small things I appreciate again. One of which is lightning bugs, fireflies. Not that we didn't have them down south. We did. But this summer, and I remember even noticing this last summer, if you drive through like an area with fields and more of like a countryside, oh my God, like it looks like the ground is sparkling. It looks like there is just glitter everywhere. And it's just like these sparkles and everything in the evening time through the fields. And I was like, it's so magical and beautiful. And I love it.
Okay. All right.
You're like, I hate you. I hate you so much. Do this for me. Go out in the evening time, beautiful evening when the sun is setting and the fireflies are coming out, and just watch them. And not like just like in the city or in a neighborhood, but like go out somewhere in nature in a field and just watch like everything sparkle. And tell me it doesn't like do something to you. It may not because you're dead inside, but maybe it'll jumpstart something there in you. I don't know. No. Probably not. Probably not because you're actually AI.
But the thing is, like, even, you go to a concert or you're watching a fireworks display and you take the video of it because you're in the moment, you're really enjoying something.
Yeah.
You're like, everybody must love this. Everybody is going to love this. And you put it out there. And it's not the experience
nobody cares
of freaking doing it, right?
Yeah.
But as human beings, we get caught up in those emotional moments that, we want everybody to feel that thing. Even like when you're listening to a really good song and you get drilled into the lyrics.
Yep.
And then somebody else is having that same experience. You get a bit of like, what's wrong with them? Are they a zombie?
Yeah, like a song that'll like give you goosebumps and just this wow moment. And oh my God, that's so touching. And you share it and everyone's like, okay.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Everybody has their thing. Like I would have an analog of the lightning bug feeling that you get in something else. And I would tell you about it being all excited. And you'd be like, right. Like looking up at the cosmos and catching a glimpse of the stars that you don't get to see, or the clouds of nebular gases, and like really have an appreciation. You'd be like, that's less
cool.
That's less than beautiful. So yeah, but we do have a hard time with that, because here's the thing. We are all such different creatures, but then we think everyone else is the same as us. And we start invoking the whole diversity thing, thinking that, we celebrate our differences, but we really freaking don't know how to do that. We don't let want to let somebody who has a thing that we don't understand just enjoy it without throwing our 2 cents and trying to minimize their enjoyment out of it. We do that all over the place. So I'm cool with everybody just going and doing their own freaking thing. And if you like lightning bugs, I like to take lightning bugs, hit them with a baseball bat, make them blow up, and then wrap them around my finger and have little lightning bug rings on, right? That's my enjoyment. I get fluttery inside.
God, have you actually done that?
Of course, everybody has done that.
You hit him with a baseball bat?
A wiffle ball bat, not a real base. If you hit them with a real baseball bat, they just shred, and they're not usable. If you hit them with a wiffle ball bat, it just kind of stuns them. They get excitable and light up, and then you can wear their jewelry for about half hour before the chemicals go out.
You kill them and then wrap their entrails around your finger.
On your finger, and you have little lightning bug jewelry. So are you?
Oh my God!
What?
That's insane. That's psychotic.
What? I get enjoyment out of it. It's not the same.
Oh, I believe you do.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the scary part.
Can't believe you haven't done. When locusts were, you remember when the locusts invaded? This had to be in the 80s. They were freaking everywhere.
Oh God, I don't remember that. Thank God. Yeah, I would have been grossed out by that.
You would grab the locust by the wings and you would slap them on the ground and they would explode like a bang snap. You never did that?
No, okay. I would never touch a locust. Okay. They gross me out.
But as kids, that was what you had. You had fun with the invasive species that were around you in the evenings. It was fun. Can't believe you didn't do that.
Oh my God. I'm trying to think now, like, is there anything twisted I did thinking, oh, look how cool this is that I murder another life form horrifically. Maybe. Have you ever heard? I don't even remember where I heard this. Have you heard that when you cut the grass, like it's summertime and you get the smell of fresh cut grass, that's the grass like screaming, dying. That's what they're admitting when because grass is a living thing, and that's their agony. Basically, the blades of grass is like screaming or dying or emitting this horrific like SOS kind of signal, and we're like, that's
enjoying
pleasant.
The suffering of
I like that. That's summertime, and that's twisted. That's so twisted to think about. Gino says, Joe, you're scaring the listeners and viewers.
That is a certainty, but listeners or viewers will not admit that they have done some of those same things because that's what kids did. Just did.
Kids that grow up to be sociopaths.
No, listen. If you can go around feeling good about smelling murdered grass, right, and not feel any way about it, and then my lightning bug rings are nothing. Like I didn't. It was a quick death. Like you're just injuring.
How's it a quick death?
Hitting with a baseball bat's instantaneous.
And then wearing it on your finger?
Yes, it's gone. It's the lightning bug is passed. The locust.
So it's dead on your finger.
Yes.
It's so weird.
Okay.
Weird.
I thought it was a thing. I thought it. Boy, right? I don't expect girls to have gone in the field and murdered insects for fun. So anyway, let's move on from that one. But I feel like
Julie,
a little bit of nostalgia.
You might want to rethink this conversation.
I do that every day of my life.
But we did just demonstrate the happy one and the sick, sadistic, non-happy, possibly sociopathic one. But yay, good times.
Yeah.
So government.
What else? Let's get into another topic.
So I am do you want to go political or do you want to do something else?
Whatever's on your brain.
So, I saw something. I don't know if you saw this or not. Is it CBS and somebody else is like paying Trump like $30 million or something?
It's beautiful. Like so there was this sort of like litigation thing where you had politicians and politics suing news outlets. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Once you unwrap this thing and you just make it so that nobody can say anything about anything. Like if, I think it was Alex Jones was put out of business because of his Sandy Hook stuff. And he was talking, his brand is he talks crazy thing. So we get to sort of like delve into what is appropriate to talk about. Like, so from a litigation standpoint, what should you be able to be sued about? Like you're a news outlet. what should you be able to say? Or should you be able to lie? Should you be able to say things that you know to be untrue?
If you're operating under the idea that this is factual news and information, I feel like you shouldn't.
Okay, so if I was a news outlet and I said Trump was a Nazi, okay, not true. Like definitionally, if you looked up what a Nazi is and say Trump is a Nazi, would that be something that I could probably just sue you for, right? And would you want to be able to sue somebody for saying something as egregious as that? Because there's a way to present that doesn't go right to he's a Nazi, right? You can take shots at individual actions and tell me why you think in an opinion piece that you think it's wrong, or the Dominion voting deal. That was a big lawsuit. I think Fox News got sued for like almost $1 billion.
What was that one?
I believe the story was that there was vulnerabilities in Dominion voting machines, and Fox ran a story, and Dominion sued them because what they said was not a truthful thing.
Especially if you say something that's not truthful and it costs somebody something, costs them their job, their livelihood, money, whatever, then isn't that slander? Or
well, when you are a public figure, you can take criticisms that you can't sue for, especially if you use your persona and you use your business and you use your platform as part of your brand, then you're assailable from that standpoint. And so I really would like more emphasis putting on truthful statements, but so long that we're in the weirdest information exchanges where everybody's lying about everything. Everybody's using marketing language for their end. Okay. So for instance, the big, beautiful bill. Did you hear about this last night?
Well, I heard it pass the Senate.
Okay.
And I've been trying to see what's in this thing. And I even pulled it up online and I went, I am not reading all of this. Someone's going to have to just explain it to me.
Okay. So the big, beautiful bill, do you think that name in general was cool for bills to have marketing language in it?
No, it seemed very Trump-esque.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I had a bill and I wanted to sell it to you and I put language in there like the "we don't kick puppy dogs" or "we love puppy dogs" things, because you're going to be like, oh, that bill must be really beautiful, so I'm going to vote for that. Like, it seems
nice.
Seems like that's more for, it's not a professional thing.
Yeah.
I want it to be boring titles. Right?
Yeah.
And
it's
so,
not neutral. Yeah, for sure.
But it was challenged by Chuck Schumer late last night, and he said that the big, beautiful bill was not appropriate to title something like that, and the name of the bill was stricken, and now it is just referred to as the act. Right?
Yeah.
The act.
The act.
And that's cool because now we have precedents for changing the titles of bills to just reflect what is actually on the bill, not a slant or a bias that goes towards some kind of marketing end. And it can just get to be nice and boring. That's my hope. So the litigation solves the problem of people lying. Cool. Go to the bottom of that. Make it, to the most outrageous end that you possibly can. So maybe we fix, slants or bias. What's cool about artificial intelligence and Grok and whatever is you can tell the outputs back to you to tell you if what you just read has, you give it the stipulation. So I say, take the consideration of where news sources get their funding, who operates, how many people are Democrats, and if they hold a liberal bias. And after every response on a news article, it then sort of like dissects the news article and said the headline was framed with a liberal bias because of this, and the people who run this organization are this, even though they say there's not a bias, all of the editors are 90% liberals. And it's super helpful to be able to filter information through that, because then you can have your bias meter in real time judge what you just read.
Yeah, and I feel like we see online all the time, anybody who's on YouTube, you will see that a YouTube video may have a headline or a title that is very attention grabbing, that is very, oh my gosh, I've got to go see what they're talking about. And it may have very little, if not nothing, to do with what you actually watch, but it's trying to invoke some sort of emotion in you. That, to me, is a source of entertainment, these videos. So if a credible, seemingly factual news organization, government organization, something that is meant to be taken very seriously does that, then to me, now you're no longer a serious source. You're no longer something that is unbiased and truthful and reliable. And it's like you've just become the TV show or the internet video. You're no better or no different.
Yeah, you solve this. I think you just make it so that editorializing and opinion pieces are one thing and news reporting is another. You hybridize those two and let someone take an angle to have elicit some kind of emotional response to a news piece. Like if you read how I post things on social media, it's completely objective. There isn't this is me being curious. I want to know something, and it could go in other direction, and I'm not certain which direction it's going to go, but I'm interested. All of that is 100% truthful. Versus saying something like the big, beautiful bill is not going to pay for itself, and it's going to be this bloated thing that just adds things to the deficit, right? And okay, that's your opinion, but nobody knows that. You don't have a crystal ball. You don't know what's going to happen. There's some element. Now, if you said, there's a thing in here that I think is going to do this, and 2 years from now, this is when I think it's going to happen. The I think and I think are what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Is this your opinion, or is this something that is provable and sound, like a judge would accept this as not being hearsay?
Yeah, and I see a lot of articles that people share online, and they'll say, oh my gosh, this thing is so terrible and it's going to hurt people. And I read it, and it's a whole lot of could possibly, might potentially, there's a chance that, and I'm like, so you're not saying that it is anything. You're saying, I think that it's possible that this could maybe become, but people who want to believe something, who want to side with somebody, will negate all those important little words and just take it as fact. Well, this is a bad thing because they said so. Did they though? Did they? Or did they say, yeah, anything's possible. Anything could happen if something was done differently.
So let's take Julie's, because I like to do these in real time. I kind of want to share my logic. Is Trump checks every box of being a Nazi except for anti-Semitism. He's close enough. Okay. So how would you take a statement like that and convert it to something that is reasonable and would be objective?
Her statement, and make it reasonable and objective.
Yeah. So if you're critical, then you have an end that you want to prove that Trump is a Nazi. And if you are a supporter, then you want to prove that Trump is not a Nazi. Reasonable people in the middle just want to know if he's a Nazi. So you got to frame something, not that you want to market towards one of those two ends, because you just want to make it believable, make the evidence support one way or another. So what we do on the business side of things is we waterfall things. Okay. We take things to a conclusion and we waterfall them all down the rapids and over the rocks and everything that could happen. And you say, what would it take for Trump to become a Nazi? Engineering. If I wanted Trump to be a Nazi, you have to ask the first question is, what is a Nazi? Do you know what a Nazi is?
I mean, to me, it was just part of this regime in Germany that did unkind things to Jews and followed Hitler. And
okay, so what about him becoming a Nazi would you not want him to do? Like, what parts of being a Nazi are something that you don't want?
I mean, I definitely would be concerned if he called for any kind of genocide.
Okay, so killing off an ethnicity of some kind, right?
Yeah,
so that's number one. So it has to be, is it mean to, is it killing? Like how far, like if I picked an ethnic group and I just said I didn't like them, and I, like, let's just say white Christian males, if I just wanted to assail them and make life harder for them and take advantage away from them and really, hammer them, right?
Yeah.
Versus I take Christian white males and I murder them. I put them in concentration camps.
Yeah. That would
So
escalate that
somewhere
statement.
in between those two things.
Yeah.
Being able to assail and murdering them. So we don't want Trump to take an ethnic group. So keep waterfalling this out. Which ethnic group, if Trump was going to become a Nazi, would be who you think he hates?
Would be that target. I mean, it would have to be anybody that's not the typical white, blonde hair, blue eye, Caucasian group. Anybody else, he would be like,
okay,
I want only this
so
race.
White supremacy, white nationalism, picking an ethnic group that is superior to all other ethnic groups.
Yeah.
Okay. So far we have the premise that if we wanted to check boxes to see if that was happening, right? If he was picking a group and overtly giving, sort of like an angle on taking out an entire group. So make the argument then with which group do you have evidence at this point that could be targeted? Because you float it, right?
Yeah.
Is he targeting Hispanics?
I don't think so. I mean, somebody could say, oh, well, look at all these Hispanics that got arrested in this, but there are also some that did not.
Okay.
So how can you say he's targeting someone if there are multiple examples of somebody that's the same nationality that is not?
Is it a majority, though, of Hispanics that if you are... so in order for this to qualify, the box needs to be checked. It has to be an overt... I'm saying part of my policy is to make sure that we rid as many Hispanics as we can from this country. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus... let me take criminals, no matter who you are, and don't give any of them a pass and deport all of them. All right. So if you're just joining us, we're in real time going through the logic to figure out, is Trump becoming a Nazi? What he would have to do if you wanted him to become a Nazi, how he'd have to amp up his game in a certain department so that it could be true Nazi, Nazi light, Nazi, not a Nazi at all.
Yeah.
Okay. So, other things, authoritarianism, right? So the Nazi Party was a very consolidation of power where you had one person that could just call all of the shots and nobody would get in their way, and they would murder you if you got in front of them. So you can now make the case is the power of the executive branch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you implement sort of, or see evidence of fascist behavior in the way that the power is consolidated in the executive branch of the federal government?
I mean, again, to an extent, but is it only like, does it stop there? Does the executive branch have absolutely no checks and balances?
Make your next leap. The judicial is the check on Trump's executive power, and the Supreme Court ruled that the local federal district courts can't take an injunction and overrule the executive branch's authority to write executive orders and to do things outside the scope of the legislature. So if you could make the argument that if you take that oversight away from those district judges, that the power is more consolidated because there's less people that can get in the way and be an obstacle to it.
If you took that away, which we haven't. Or are you talking about the ability for a judge to stop what he's doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't have an authority that can overrule you, you've consolidated power that I can make a decision and nobody can alter that decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as we roll through these, it should be popping into your brain the things that you would absolutely change to all people to make sure that what you're afraid of happening is Trump, that doesn't happen with anybody. So do you think Joe Biden, right, was just as guilty at accumulating power at the executive branch that couldn't be challenged by people outside?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
if it's universal, where we don't want authoritarianism, we don't want fascism, we don't want to have a single person's rule, then we change the construct of how our country operates. So nobody has that authority. But if it's the other guy that's using that power, then it's definitely Nazism.
Yeah.
But if it's your guy, it's just, oh, it's just doing his job. Like, how dare you get in the way and obstructing what the executive branch can do?
Yeah. Like, why is one the Nazi, but all that came before him that did the same thing are not?
Yeah. But that's what, again, if you engineer it that nobody could be a Nazi, then you know what authorities you have to take away and you know what oversights you have to put in place. But at the same time, you know that you're going to make your guy's job harder if you make this guy's job harder. And that's why instead of doing the smart thing, which is curtailing executive overreach, curtailing judicial overreach, because do you want judges to act like Nazis?
No.
Do you want them to consolidate power and be able to rule the executive branch? No, because that's just swinging the pendulum in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Why would anybody be given all power without the ability to be checked or something? Yeah.
My biggest disagreement is that when you use a term like Nazi, you stop thinking about what that even means, because it's sort of
just
like
a catch-all.
It's exactly right. And you know, if you don't like authority, I don't like it either. We can get rid of having too much authority. If you like to have obstacles and impasses and have everyone just like not able to make movements in government, I'm all for that. Keep doing more of it. Make it harder for the executive branch to do freaking anything. Force them in a room and make concessions with each other. We don't want anybody running in a direction that nobody can get in their way. That's terrible.
So if one person's going to be called, whether it's Nazi or any name, for doing something, then you're going to have to call everybody else who did the exact same thing the same name.
Exactly.
And so don't see that happening.
Carter is really, really, really upset about Trump deranged syndrome. And then BJ says, I worked in print news and media for 20 years. It's 95-5 in terms of liberal versus conservatives. When it comes to political views of the employees, there was a bias in everything, mainly advertisers who ironically were conservatives most of the time.
Yeah.
And so how do you do that? If you take a staff of mostly liberals who then get to exercise their expression, how do you take the bias out of it when the entire group is not going to object to that, right? They could just have complete free reign. Nobody's going to get in their way by making a smug comment about the president if they're one direction, but a completely, oh, Biden, what flavor ice cream was that if it was Biden, right?
Yeah.
You can't.
I've seen that more and more too. Like when I record for a radio station for my other job, there's this website we use that has a bunch of information. And it could be pop culture. It could be what's happening in government, everything. And I can tell by the way it's written exactly where their ideals align. And I'm just like, wow, is that bias? What a biased way to write that. And it is, like BJ's right. I think a lot of the, especially entertainment news or anything like that, has that bias. And then people think it's factual.
Is it okay though? Like, is there value in letting like-minded people consolidate in either companies or industries or whatever?
Is there value?
Is there value in it? So if I took the NBA and I was like, you know what would be super valuable is if we made sure that it was a 50-50 split, 50-50 black, white, right? So if you have too many black guys on an NBA team, you got to cut some of them and get some white dudes in there as well. Too many tall people. So we got to have 50% tall and 50% short. So when you make the argument that if you're trying to make things equal when it comes to representation, do you lose value of the end product when there's a bunch of short white guys running around on the basketball court? Or are you going to be like, this is a beautiful game now?
Yeah.
Right? We've got perfect diversity.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, we could have won and had a really talented team, but we got rid of the talent because of their height or their skin color or whatever. In the name of diversity, we now tainted what this could have been.
Yeah. So if we take is it better to take NPR or the Associated Press or any media and say, you have to fire half of your liberal staff and you have to bring this group of conservative staff in there so that we have perfect diversity? Or are we like, go make a liberal newspaper and we're just going to say you're a liberal newspaper, and you go make a conservative one, you guys fight it out, and then the consumers will get to decide for themselves, which is more valuable. Forced diversity or letting the market express the biases, but just be honest about them.
And that's the thing, is that's what I would like. If they flat out said, hey, by the way, we are a whatever organization. We are a left-leaning, right-leaning, whatever source of information. And then you can be like, all right, well, okay, then I'm going to read this and see your side of it. And if I want another side, I can go and read this and know their side of it, because everybody is being totally transparent with where they stand on the information they're given. That would be easier.
I think if a bunch of white dudes didn't feel like they were represented well in the NBA, they start their own league, call it the White Dudes Basketball League, and then you just have perfect diversity where everybody's free to play basketball, but we're not forcing them together into the end product where we might be reducing its value. It's absurd, I know, but it's a good thought experiment to walk through.
Yeah.
Like, which do we like? Do we like segregation, right? Where everybody, not forced segregation, naturally ending segregation, and and we can watch it what it's worth. We have women's basketball, we have men's basketball. Why do we do that?
Because
it's a much better product.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. To mix the two would be a little ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah. It's unnatural and it would reduce the value of the overall game. But if we took that philosophy, knowing that we're not saying that. So if you had I don't know if you saw this, there was a soccer match. There was a professional soccer league that played against a bunch of 15-year-old boys, and the 15-year-old boys beat the professional women's soccer league.
I did not see that.
And it made the rounds on every conservative news outlet, poked the fun at the dominance of men in that sport.
Oh god,
it's happened a couple of times. There's been some sports that, and really it points out that there's just a separation in what people are good at. I know that a tall black guy is going to dominate me if I play basketball against them. I don't care. I can hit 3-pointers all day. I am money from behind that line.
Really?
Money, right?
Wow.
But at 5'4" and I have a 7-foot person over top of me, I have zero hope of arcing that ball over that monstrosity of a human being that's in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know so if I'm going to play a pickup game with guys like Luke, even though he's bigger than me, I might be able to at least run a little faster than him.
Yeah.
And be able to take my 3-point shots.
And we do sort of gravitate to the like-minded too. I mean, again, when it comes to the YouTube videos or anything on the internet, you have something like algorithms that if you enjoy something, you get served something similar. You get served something similar. You don't get served something opposite of what you're watching or something that goes against what you're watching. It's pretty rare. Typically, you're going to stay in that little sort of like-mindedness. That's the entertainment thing to you. If it's pushed back all the time, you're probably like, not into it.
Well, we self-sort. That is just part of being a human, but we almost look at that as a bad thing. So, okay, it's 6th grade, school dance, right? All the girls kind of go over this side and all the boys are on this side. And they're not like, why does that happen? Like what about that self-sorting?
It feels safer. It feels more comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if a teacher or chaperone of some kind said, I'm going to take half of this group and I'm going to mix them? Would the experience of the school dance be any different if it was forced to then make you sit next to someone who you don't want to be sitting next to?
Yeah, for
Why?
sure.
What would be different about the school dance?
It probably would be more uncomfortable. It might not be as fun. It would be awkward, maybe.
But there might be some more hookups. There might be some people getting their
Well, some people might like that.
For sure.
It would be awkward and uncomfortable to the people who don't like it, but it would be like, oh, right on for the people that are like, this is why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's read some more comments. Back to the Nazism thing. Nazism was a totalitarian far-right ideology that advocated for German supremacy, territorial expansion, and anti-Semitism. AI info. Perfectly stated, Julie. Thank you. He does not recognize the separation of powers. I don't think the government recognizes the separation of powers.
Yeah.
And as soon as if everybody's trying to gray area a thing, then it really doesn't exist because everybody's trying to end around. But when the other guy does it, you point it out like, oh, look, he stepped over the line of whatever. And
is Joe Biden a Nazi, Julie?
Yeah. So
is he?
And that's what the conclusion I hope everybody comes to is that if there are no boundaries for anyone, then you can't be outraged when somebody goes beyond a boundary that nobody respects.
Yes. And you could say all of them are out of line, and I'd be like, sure,
Absolutely.
I could see that. But to say one is and one isn't when they do the same thing, that's when we get into that Trump derangement syndrome area, is when you've got such a big problem with something he does because it's him. But here's an example of this guy who did it, and this guy who did it, and this guy who did the exact same thing, and you're fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's TDS.
Well, and Trump is going to be gone in 3 years, right? And so the ultimate checkmate on that is that all of your energy should be in putting someone else in there. You should be gearing up for the moment that he's not there anymore, rather than okay. So let me phrase it this way, because there's a conflict in this argument. I want to talk through it a little bit. So if somebody runs on something, so let's just say Joe Biden runs on sanctuary cities and not prosecuting any criminals that are coming across our border. We'll say he has a plan for 20 million people that he's just going to let in and let break the law. Mm-hmm. And he runs an election and campaigns on that, and then he gets elected. Now, in order to come through on that promise, he has to then skirt the regulations and tell Border Patrol not to do their job, right? Mm-hmm. And without any pushback, he could just executive branch just tell law enforcement not to enforce the laws sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now you make the argument, did he get the mandate to do that because he was an elected president? Should he just be allowed to skirt the process because he was elected? So which one's higher on the hierarchy? You got elected to do something even if it's not able to be done unless you break laws, right? Or you're in there, got the mandate to do it, but you really can't do that, so you got to stick to the law. Which was more important to you? Let the guy get elected, have his way, or follow the rules no matter who you are?
I think follow the rules.
I'm with you.
If you just get elected and now can do whatever you want to do, what's the point of the rules? What's the point of anything?
That would be the totalitarianism, that if you can take a populist campaign, get people on board, right? Then you can go back after you've done that, break all of the rules. And all you got to do is refer, well, they voted for it, right?
Yeah.
That's mob rule. That is the essence of everything the founders feared about making this country what it is.
And I like what you said too about rather than just sort of getting angry at or bashing whatever elected official is in office, look at what is able to be done and not done and go after that. My husband had a conversation with a good friend of his who's very liberal, and they were talking about immigration and everything. And there were several examples of these people that were in the country illegally, and you had these chances to sort of do it the right way and do the paperwork, and you didn't. And now you're kind of upset that you have to leave. And his friend's argument was, but it's too difficult. It's too difficult to do the correct route, to take all the proper measurements to become a citizen. And to me, I say, if you believe that, and if that is in fact the case, that it's a very difficult process and you don't think it should be, then fight that. Then argue about that. Then protest that. Then say, hey, no matter who's in office, something needs done about this. But it's never that. It's always this president is the problem. This person is the problem, even if they do the same things that everybody else did. And I'm just like, that makes no sense. Okay, then when they're gone, when he leaves in 3 years, is that process still going to seem difficult to you? Is it still going to be unchanged? Yeah. So what did we do then by just getting rid of him in 3 years? Nothing.
Yeah. This is not a thinking man's game. And that's as much as we have opinions on this stuff. My entire life, we've been talking about the same insanity just on repeat, and every generation thinks they bring a new angle to it. And, but it's ridiculous because nobody who's a politician can seem to ever solve this problem. Because here's the student loans, right? You talk to a person and say, student loans are predatory, right? And we shouldn't be doing this to kids and saddle them with all this debt. And then, oh, this kid needs a student loan. Here's a student loan. At the same time, you are doing the thing on repeat that is causing the problem. Now, you got to make the jump. Do you just like having that excuse because you're populating tomorrow's complaint by doing the same thing today that caused the complaint?
Yeah. Do you like the Hunger Games?
Yeah.
So I've only ever really seen the first one and maybe bits and pieces of another one. But to me, it is so interesting that like you have this game, this thing that is horrific, children fighting children to the death, in order to get supplies or food or whatever for their district and their families. And it's awful and it's sad. And it's like, oh my God, how could we do this and pit these people against each other? But what happens? People watch, people engage, people glamorize it. People have their favorite teams. People have who they're rooting for. When everyone is like, oh my God, why don't we all band together against the organization making us do this? Why don't we stop watching? Why don't we call this out for what it is? Why don't we say this is insane and we're not doing this anymore? But instead of rising up against President Snow or whoever it is and the people that watch and say we're ending this, it's no, we're just going to fight over whose team we're on and who should win and who deserves this weapon. And and we get so dumb. It's like we get so entrenched in it that we're not even like fighting what caused what we're fighting about.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Hunger Game comes to pass.
Oh, my daughter would be so proud of me for making the Hunger Games reference.
So would you be a participant? Would you volunteer
in the Hunger Games?
Yeah.
Heck no.
Why?
Oh my! What? No, just go to my death or go kill someone. That's not cool. I'm not doing this.
Do you think the lottery system is the best way to do that? Or do you think the bravest knight should emerge from District 4?
Yeah. Let's have your brave knight come out because guaranteed.
Or the person in your village that you're not fond of, they need to go.
Yeah. It'd be like sorry. Good luck to you.
We don't need food anyway, but having you not be here anymore would be grand.
Which would you prefer, the Hunger Games or the Purge?
Ooh, that's interesting. I think you'd be more in control of the Purge because it's not for forced participation, where if you're in the Hunger Games, you're in that circle and you got to perform.
You have to do it.
You can kind of go a little ninja in the Purge and, pick somebody off or be picked off yourself. One of the two.
Yeah.
I think you got more controls there.
I could see that. You
wouldn't do well in either one.
Me? No.
You'd be
either one, I'm like crying and freaking out. And my only hope, I think, would be in the Hunger Games when they talk about you sort of winning over sponsors and getting people to like you so that you get more advantages. I would attempt to play that angle because it would be all I had. Like, what can I do to try to better my chances and my weapons and my resources?
So, but your first thing would be like, go total bone spurs and like, you can't put me in there. I'm just not capable. And then if you were forced into there, it would be try to work the advantages to try to give yourself a higher probability.
Yeah.
Would you be eyeballing the other people, knowing who was going to take you out and try to form alliances? And maybe, I don't know, did that happen in the movies where they let people survive?
I feel like some people, I think, like, yeah, they formed alliances, and then didn't they do like at the end of the first one, they were going to have, they made it a tie, and then they said, nope, like, we don't want a tie, end it now. And they were going to kill themselves. And then they said, fine. We'll tie this because you can't end the show. That would be bad TV if both people just died. And they'd rather have two victors than no victor. And it's so
just
twisted.
Play that from the start and just go all Harry Carey from the very beginning. Yeah. And then they'll be like, no, we can't have everybody dying. But yeah, I don't know. That kind of fiction it primes some thoughts.
But do you think that anything we have in real life is just as outrageous?
Psychologically, not physically. We might not be in Hunger Games.
Yeah, we're not
physical
actually
deal,
running
but
out and killing each other, but
there's a lot of
do
similarities.
you ever watch the news and think, oh my God, we are twisted
Mhm.
that we allow this to happen?
Mhm. But I think art used to almost mock that as something like when you had the villain in the story, that everybody uniformly was against the villain and what they did, like the corrupt person who was poisoning the news cycle and controlling other people. Everybody could agree that. But then, sort of
Yeah.
like maybe a decade ago, we started almost rooting for the villain a lot. And if the villain did a couple things, like everything from Robin Hood to Dexter to whatever, we were like, so he's breaking rules and he's doing the wrong thing, but because he's going after someone that I don't like, then I can like turn a blind eye to that happening.
Yeah.
Versus saying, hey, let's just, theft is wrong, and I don't care if Robin Hood's stealing from the guy that I dislike. Let's condemn Robin Hood and put a stop to that shit.
Yeah. Or how about in the end when who seemed like such the obvious villain was actually not? Like, oh my God, my daughter's going to wig out. But Harry Potter, and I don't follow Harry Potter. I know a smidgen of information about Harry Potter, but spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Apparently, what's his name? Professor Snape of Slytherin, who was like the obvious bad guy, turns out to actually not be. That he was actually helping Harry and controlling things to keep him safe. And even though he had dark hair and a deep voice and enjoyed like all these other dark things and he looked like a bad guy, he wasn't. That he was behind the scenes working for good. Wouldn't that be something if there were people in our government that were that like obvious, like what if one day Julie saw something and was like, oh my God, this whole time I thought Trump was the obvious villain and it's really so-and-so. Or like, I had no idea what he was doing behind the scenes, or, masking something in order to keep everyone safe, like Batman. That's like, I'll be the bad guy. I'll be the villain to keep you all safe. I'll let you perceive me this way. And it's like, what if?
Yeah, see, I don't think any of them are either villain or hero. I think they're all villain. I think they're because the public lost its bearings on what it means to be a hero and a villain. Like growing up, TV reflected who you should go. The person that had these principles, that even if it meant their death, they were courageous enough to stand for what they believe, even if it meant not happening to them. So what was it? What was that movie where Stark died in the first scene because he was loyal to his king? He was my favorite character because he was that guy. He was the hero, and he died in the first scene. And then you had everybody else who's these little bit of hero, little bit of villain, and we kind of like that now. So
Two-Face.
Yeah.
Batman Two-Face. I got all the movie references today.
Yeah. I did, when you said masking, I pictured the Scooby-Doo where they took the mask off and really
oh yeah, really, who is this? Oh my God,
I would have got away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids. That was right went through my head.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're going to get in trouble with Julie. She wants to punch me in the throat for saying TDS. Julie says putting people in concentration camps surrounded by human predators is pretty horrific. Yeah, and there were a couple of concentration camps where they took Jews and they loaded them on train cars, and soldiers brought them into death camps that took them out and killed them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she's making sort of an analogy towards detention camps for illegal immigration. I'm assuming.
I was like, did Trump put people in concentration camps?
That's marketing language. They're not concentration camps, Julie. But alligator Alcatraz, you hear about that?
Oh, I was gonna ask you about that. Alligator Alcatraz.
Yep.
So from what I saw, apparently we now have this facility in the Everglades of Florida,
right,
where there's one road in, and it will house all of the supposed illegal immigrants until they can be shipped out. And it's this enormous facility, and it's surrounded by rough terrain and wildlife, and it's called Alligator Alcatraz. How do you feel about it?
I have mixed emotions on it.
Okay.
All right. So is it better than we'll say Cuba, like sending them off to a detention camp that is for terrorists. Yeah, it's probably better because it can be controlled within the rules and regulations of what you can do in the United States.
Still in the States,
and we're not about torturing people and making, putting people in things that risk life and whatever. If it's a temporary holding thing until you can get people back to wherever they belong, then that's cool. But it's not something where I want, someone serving a 10-year stint in the worst, most unimaginable conditions that are if we go this route, we knew that we were going to be dealing with 20 million people, and that is a huge amount of people we have to be able to figure out how to deal with. So if you were thinking, let's just say your friend happened to come into this country, you like them, you hang out, you do dinner, and now you picture they broke the law, so some kind of judgment or some kind of consequence has to be there. What would you want your friend that you just had a picnic with them last week? What would you want their experience to be in righting that wrong? Would you want it to be, just awful experience where they're treated like a hardened criminal that killed people or raped and murdered? Or would you just want the appropriate amount of justice to be handed to them?
Yeah. If it were a mess up that was not, oh my God, you brutally murdered somebody in cold blood, but you messed up legally, financially, procedurally,
right?
Yeah. You'd say, okay, well, there's some consequences you got to face. That really sucks. I hope this works out for you, and learn your lesson, but don't get annihilated in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like that calling it alligator Alcatraz is again that marketing.
Yes.
It's that tough guy, puff chest, coming down on you hard. We're sending you to alligator Alcatraz. And it's like, if you were sending the hardened, cold-blooded criminals, by all means.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so you take the facility and you create you take a warehouse that's down the street and you put cages inside with bunks, and it's not in the middle of like alligator territory. It's just in an open field, right? It could be the exact same experience, but alligator Alcatraz feels like it's going to be worse than my warehouse up the street.
Yeah, it's almost like it's meant to be a deterrent.
Yes.
Like, you better do things the right way. You better not, skip out on anything. You better follow the rules, or else you're going to end up in alligator Alcatraz. Mm-hmm. And they want that to carry weight to say that, other than, oh, you mean the facility in Florida where I go and I get held up for a little bit until my paperwork goes through? Mm-hmm. That's not as cool, I don't think, to them. It's got to mean something.
Yeah, it's got to have scary teeth.
Yeah.
Let's see. Wouldn't have needed Alcatraz had Biden not let in millions of undocumented. The only thing I'm going to push back on that is that when you ran on this, that math was built in. You were going to be dealing with 20 million people. And it's just as much your problem to be able to market what you're going to do. So, I agreed with the first round of things. We're going to round up the hardened criminals. You have almost universal agreement that people who rape and murder people in the United States and they're not supposed to be here, get them out of here. And I don't care if you put them in alligator Alcatraz with alligators in their freaking cell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That one's good. But it's also marketing to the other ones where we've got some families that are going through this system. I don't want alligator Alcatraz to be in their future. Let's deal with them differently. So I think the detractors had a larger voice and said all the right things to make you feel a certain way. And I don't think the proponents said a whole lot to make this palatable for those reasonable middle people. And I put that on them. They got to be better at communicating so that, reasonable people get an idea of what this really is.
Yeah. Julie says, did you see those facilities? El Salvador intense in the Everglades.
I saw screenshots of what the holding cells were, those the basically chain link fencing cages. But I didn't see the facility. I didn't see where it was going to be. Or
I haven't actually seen it. They need to do a tour of the facility and put that online.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. Because, I feel like, obviously you have two extreme sides. You've got people that are like, let everybody come live here. United States is a melting pot. And whatever their situation, we should welcome them in. And then you have one that's like, get everybody out. They're all criminals. If you're here illegally, you're a criminal. Just leave. Hope you get like the worst punishment ever. And then you have sort of the like non-crazies that say, hey, we need a process. We need to follow some rules. We got to make things make sense. If you are a hardened criminal and you're murdering people, then by all means, let's throw the book at you. And if you simply let your paperwork expire or you missed out something or whatever, then we're going to handle that differently. Whatever alligator Alcatraz is specifically, I don't know. I don't know if it's that middle ground or if it's leaning one way or the other, but do you think alligator Alcatraz will still be in business when Trump is gone?
No, not a chance.
Who's funding it?
It's probably the budget for ICE like quadrupled. I think it went from like 60 to 120. It was a big jump in what they were budgeted for. So I think all of this is going to be run through the agency that does detentions, does enforcement, does all of ICE's function. So that's my guess.
So I wonder if people like Julie, maybe, that I'm assuming have a lot of reservations about this alligator Alcatraz idea. If we change the name, maybe it was like Hotel Everglades and there were no cages. It was a hotel facility. People had rooms and people had comfortable beds and families were in there together and they stayed in Hotel Everglades until they are shipped off. Same process is followed. You're still getting kicked out. You're still leaving the country. You're still going to end up somewhere else. But the name is different. The facility is different. Are you more for it now?
Yeah, it's marketing language. If we say this is the cocktail wing and this is the beach sands wing and here's the palms wing.
Yeah.
Right now it almost seems like vacation time.
Yeah. If you weren't maybe handcuffed and thrown into a cage, but a concierge said, enjoy your stay. Thanks for playing along and saw you to your room. And then you were flown out of the country. Do you feel better about this?
I like
Same
that
people.
you take liberties to go ridiculous. I think I'm a terrible influence on you, but I like that. I like that thought.
I would bet people would have a hard time arguing back about this if just the marketing were different.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've been making that case for years, though, that as long as we're tolerant of letting politicians market to us rather than just give details and data, it's always going to be this.
Yeah.
You're going to have the big, beautiful bill that then you get to say, it's ugly, right? And you're going to have
it's mean, it's inhumane.
It's a hotel and it's very comfy.
Yeah. I mean, one president who's a Democrat can kick people out, and one president who's a Republican can kick people out, but people feel totally different about it. People make excuses for one and not for the other. It's the same thing, except one may have said it more nicely than the other did. Mm-hmm. Maybe not as bluntly, maybe without all the marketing language and theatrics and the names of things. But the same thing is happening, and one has outrage and the other does not.
Mm-hmm. And it reverses and flips. It's maddening.
Yeah.
Let's see. 70% of those detained have no criminal record. That's your opinion, I believe.
70% of those detained have no criminal record. Are they here legally through a process done correctly and they have documentation showing they have every right to be here? Because if not, that's the criminal record. That's the law they broke. So you can't really say that. You may not think it's a horrific law they broke. It might be that instance of, oh, dude, your stuff expired and why'd you let that happen? And that really sucks for you. You know, I hope you can stay in the Hilton in the Everglades before you leave and not some prison somewhere.
Well,
but
I say that it's an opinion because when you say something have a criminal record, okay, so criminal record would mean that you broke a law, you were put in before a judge, and a court ruled that you now have a consequence for having broken a rule.
Mm-hmm.
So if I broke a law. I stole your television set, right? Never been caught, never went before a judge, and I was never punished for whatever it is. Okay. So the dividing line between are you guilty but have not yet gotten your due process for guilt means that some people who are in those detention centers did not go through the same criminal proceedings that you do. So they don't have the thing that they can put on their law that says, I am a felon.
Yeah, it's paperwork. They don't have a criminal record because of paperwork.
Yep. And what would you do if you're in the executive? You would say, fine, if that's your standard, then we're going to, before we send you to Alligator Alcatraz, we're going to take a line outside of a court system, right? Inside of court. And we're going to do a 5-minute proceeding that's then going to make it formal that now you're a criminal, and then Alligator Alcatraz. That's what I would do. It wouldn't be hard because there's not like you have a defense against. Everyone that's in that line can get that formal piece of paper on there. And that's why they're skipping it. But don't skip it. Make these little tiny courts, right, that get them that criminal record.
And technically, can you not self sort of deport?
Yes.
Like if you're like, I know I'm expired. I know my paperwork doesn't exist. I know I did something out of order, whatever. And I'm pretty sure ICE would have a problem with this. And so would the president or whoever. I'm going to pack up. I'm going to get myself a flight. I'm going to go, and I'll see y'all when I straighten this out. You don't have to be thrown in Alligator Alcatraz. You don't have to be publicly humiliated by being arrested at your kid's school or blah, blah, blah. You do also have the option of saying, I'm going to go ahead and go straighten this out myself before things get uglier out of hand.
Yeah, and that's where the argument of making the process easier makes a whole lot of sense. And there would be all three of those things that are happening. So I'm the judge. You come up in front of me, and this is my quick 5-minute court. I'd ask you like 2 questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you here illegally? Yes or no? Did you come here and skip the line and just walked across the border? Right now, you either tell me the truth and say, yeah, I kind of did it.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sorry about it. Got a family here, whatever. And I'm either going to hand you to the group that wants to help you process out, right? Because you admitted to it, you can process out. Or then you're going to say, no, I'm here legally. And my second question is going to be, show me your documentation of you following the rules. I'm going to look you up in our system right now. And if you're in there, cool. If not, you just lied to me. And then you are going to skip the whole, I want to be led into the system part. And you're just going to Alligator Alley. That's why it would only take 5 minutes, because you are basically going to say, or there is a third option. Hey, I got picked up and I really got my paperwork. Cool. Show me. Here's my paperwork. Oh, sorry. You're in the wrong line, doofus. And then let you go out there.
Here's your stamp. You're good to go.
There's only 3. So either you get 2 formal documents that now our commenter would say, now you're a criminal. Now you can be processed the way that it should. So don't skip that part. Do it. Get it out of the way.
Yeah. Oh, we had some more up there.
Oh, we have more up above that?
I think possibly Carter said something before now I meant. They cried no due process. No, Alligator Alcatraz is not giving them a method for due process. And now they are complaining about that. Trump can't win no matter what.
Julie says the BBB is ramping up ICE to include 17,000 civilians found to round up immigrants. Did you see Trump at the press conference in Florida when asked twice about how long detainees were going to be kept there? He told us that food prices were going down. Okay. The same thing is not happening and just marketed differently. How do you explain that? That completely waters down the unprecedented, what's that say?
Steps? The unprecedented steps that are being taken and challenged in court. The same thing is not happening and just marketed differently. How do you explain that? That the same thing's happening and being marketed
what
differently.
Part you have to be more specific. I think that happened a couple of minutes ago. I forget what.
I think she might mean. So we said, would you feel differently if instead of Alligator Alcatraz, we just call it a hotel and make it nice? And she's like, but that's not happening. It is this horrendous thing, I think is what she meant. I don't know. That completely waters down the unprecedented steps that are being taken and challenged in court. So I guess she's assuming in this court scenario you said It's not cut and dry. It's not you did this and you go here, or you did this and you go
Well,
here.
yeah, that we're formulating how it should be. And I know it's a cluster on both sides, right? I
Mhm.
know the overreaches and the not following the rules and, doing injunctions that are overstepping your bounds and more litigation in this administration in the first 5 months than I don't know if it never happened like this in previous administration, but I know it's happening a lot in this one.
Yeah. Julie said something interesting. A guy that served 38 years in the military that took 2 bullets and received a Purple Heart, self-deported. Yeah, US. My husband and I had an interesting conversation we were talking about people coming here illegally and what should be done and whatnot. And I do think if you have come here and maybe you are not totally legal, your documentation never went through, or it's not correct, or you didn't do whatever, but you signed up willingly, voluntarily to serve our country, I feel like you should get a fast pass. You should get on the fast track of, all right, what is it you need to be legal? Let's look at your stuff right now. If you're here and you're just living off the country and you're not really providing much and maybe you're causing trouble or whatever, I do look at you differently if you're like, I came here and it may not be the most legal way, but I still offered to serve you all and put my life on the line for you all because I believe in this country and I put myself in harm's way to serve this country. I might look at that differently and be like, all right, show me your paperwork. Let's get this signed. Let's get them on a fast track of being legal and staying here.
I mean, if that was one of the steps, and we're going to get to this point probably within the next year or so, when we get rid of the criminals and we're just dealing with people, the people that just happen to be here and don't have, did it legally, buying your way into this country. I don't necessarily think it should be, just the financial expense of getting here. I think there's ways that you can earn your way into this country that's not that.
Yeah.
And if you made the mistake, and I'm not going to call it amnesty because that basically devalues citizenship to this country anyway, but here's what you did. Here's what buys you out of that. Almost like a prisoner, right?
Yeah.
Good behavior or doing something for the prison could buy time off of whatever it is. You've sacrificed and showed the loyalty to this country through the military. I'm with you. Fast pass into that paperwork for sure. Get ahead of the line.
Yeah. Instead of the conversation being about, oh, well, they were just sort of not hurting anything. Show me where they were actively working for us and making it better. I would look at them differently for sure.
Yeah. No, you said the same thing is happening. Republicans, president versus Democrat.
They're talking about if Trump is a Nazi because he's doing these things, but Biden is not a Nazi because he's doing these things. They're like, where did Biden do these things? Or anyone else, I guess.
It's the principle that makes you say he's a Nazi are the same principles that have been exhibited through other presidents. You just like that Biden was using his concentration of power for things that you agreed with. And when somebody uses that power, that things you don't agree with, they're a Nazi.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's the same functions.
Do you think a president should be allowed to pardon themselves?
No.
And didn't Biden pardon himself?
I don't think himself, no.
I think he did.
Really?
Let's Google it. I heard he did. I heard he pardoned himself and his whole family. Unless that was a rumor. All right, it was a rumor. What would I pardon?
That rumor. I'm just saying that's BS. Not even a rumor.
It was BS.
Yeah.
All right, that's what I heard. I heard that he did.
What else? Let's get off this topic because I don't even care about it that much, but it's worth considering, I think.
Let's see. Talked about movies, Hunger Games. Oh, we were talking before we started recording about this new Ryan Gosling movie. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anybody out there has seen it, but I shared it with Joe because I think it's a movie about Joe Danyi is really what this is. And I think it's called Hail Mary, maybe. Ryan Gosling.
Oh.
Maybe Hail Mary. Hail Mary movie or something. There it is.
Project Hail Mary.
Project Hail Mary. I saw the trailer yesterday, and it's was kind of a long trailer. And basically, Ryan Gosling is like a school science teacher that is voluntold, you're going to go to space and basically save humanity. Basically, I guess the sun is burning out, stars are burning out, all these different things in the solar system are all going to hell. And they have found that there is one, I think it was a star or a planet or something, has been unaffected by what's happening. And we need to know why. Because if they're safe, then maybe we can save ourselves. And Ryan Gosling, you're going to go to space and figure out this. And he's like, but I'm not an astronaut. I've never been, nor will I am not in any way, shape, or form an astronaut. I have no training to be an astronaut. I'm not one. And they're like, but we don't have anyone else. You're our only hope. And it's a Hail Mary to send this guy light years away is where he's going, in an attempt to save our planet. And I was like, oh my God, Joe Danyi would be like, no argument from me. When do I go? Sign me up. Where's my spacesuit?
Can I punch into this one real quick?
Yeah.
All right. So I'd go, no doubt, but there's nothing that is going to help humanity based on me going. By the time that I've gotten the information about what's happening on
light years away,
when I come back, right, you're all going to be enveloped by the sun, and I'm going to be like, oh, who didn't see that coming?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that maybe they have some kind of time warp, wormhole explanation as to how he can go ahead into the future, see those things, and then come back in the same timeline where it could be an effective use. So I'm not discounting it. I'll watch the damn movie, and I will go to space because of it.
They find a way. Also in the trailer, you see that he encounters an alien life form.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And tries to communicate with it and kind of reports back to Earth about it. And so I'm sure there is a Hollywood loose explanation of how this is even possible. I don't know, but it looks interesting. And you're the first person I thought of. I shared it right to your Facebook page because I was like, oh my God. I wonder if you suddenly woke up from a coma,
right?
And you're surrounded by government officials and you're like, what is going on? And they explained all this to you and said, you are our last hope. You've got to go. Do you have any reservations whatsoever? Or are you like, I've been waiting for this?
Mouth, what would be, I was just dreaming about that. Let's go. That's exactly how it would go down.
Yes. So I knew you'd be all for it. Slightly off the subject, but another reason I thought of you the other day. I was watching another interview with Lee Strobel. Do you know who Lee Strobel is? He is the author of what's his book called? Is it A Case for God or something? And he's got multiple books in which he argues a case for there being a God, there being an afterlife, all these different things. And he talks about like near-death experiences and, all that cool stuff that I'm into. And watching this and watching other scientists that sort of get on that same topic, there is this discussion happening about consciousness. What is it? Why do we have it? The mind versus the brain. This idea that instead of a body that has a mind, we are actually just consciousness that has a body. And so you've talked about this brain in a jar idea. Mm-hmm. Where you could just simply be a brain in a jar and there is no need for your meat suit.
Body.
Yeah.
No doubt.
You're just ideas going into the brain. So one idea that these two people I was watching, I think it was Michael Knowles and Lee Strobel, and they were discussing the idea that your brain receives information through things in your body. Like your eye, for example. Your eye can receive light and color. It can't receive smell. So would your brain have different information based on how your body is working? If you were blind and you suddenly could see, the way your brain is receiving information is now different. And so what we can see, what we can't see, what we can perceive, what our senses, all change information going to our brain. So would that not affect information you're getting by just being a brain? And if your brain stopped working, do you think your consciousness remains intact? I realize these are totally different, weird questions.
No.
This is the rabbit hole I went
You
down
are
the other
speaking
day.
my language, girl. You really
Yeah.
are. So, that the outside world is nothing but information. Everything we see is an illusion that our perception concocts for us to be able to make sense of it, and secondly, how to make utility of it, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you were a brain and you didn't have to eat and you didn't have to jump and whatever, the brain would just rewire itself for what you do. Like, it wouldn't be about action and survival and predators and prey. You wouldn't be contemplating things that you had no utility for, so that you'd be just doing a different thing that, evolved away from information that you had no use for. Like, do you think in our world, there is information that one of our senses can't pick up, but it's still there, even if we can't make use of it?
Do I think there is?
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
Yes. Everything. It's all
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
So
like wind. You don't really see wind.
but at least you're aware
but you're-
of its existence.
Yes.
So, like, if you were a dog and you could not see the color red. Red would not be information that ever entered into your world. You never sat around thinking about red because it's not in your environment.
I think dogs actually see red.
I've just made that up,
but pink or purple.
Whatever
I think they see
is
too.
beyond something that you don't have access to, that information doesn't mean that it's not real. It means that you just don't need it. So, and you can't see it anyway. Right.
Yeah.
And so my brain wonders, like, how many things that if our brains evolved upward, that we'd have access to information that our senses can't deliver to us right now. And what would we do with that information? What would be the utility of that information if I were just the brain in the jar?
Yeah. My son told me, I think it was Helen Keller once piloted a plane. Did you ever hear that? I might have to Google that. But I was like,
Yeah,
what?
and Joe Biden pardoned himself on that
Listen,
plane.
I'm willing to admit that I don't know things, and we need Google to see if it was true. Did Helen Keller pilot a plane?
Pilot plane. Yes. Helen
All right,
Keller did
was
fly
right
a
there.
plane. In 1946, traveling to Europe on behalf of the American Foundation for Overseas Blind, Keller took control. She did not fly it.
Listen.
She's sitting in the seat.
Right.
And there's a stick in front of her.
Right.
And the pilot's like, hey, Helen, there's a stick in front of you. Grab it. And then she grabbed it. And the pilot's like, I'm not going to grab my stick. And then she moved it.
But here's
That's
the
it.
thing. Anybody who knows about Helen Keller knows she's blind and deaf.
Yes.
Had to perceive her world in a totally different way. Had to learn language. Had to learn what things are through absolutely no sight and no hearing. Only touch, feel, figuring things out along the way. To me, I can't help but wonder, does Helen Keller fully understand what she's doing? Obviously, somebody's there and helping her. I'm not saying she piloted a plane alone, but she was able to sort of take the wheel and fly a plane. As a blind and deaf person that has never perceived flight in their whole life. So I wonder, like, what to Helen
I see what
Keller
you're saying.
is flight? What is she doing? What is she believed to be happening? Is it accurate? Like, if you think about this concept, it's like we talked earlier in the show that people experience things differently. I can see a field of fireflies and have some sort of reaction. You could see a field of fireflies and say, big deal. I can hear a song that gives me goosebumps or makes me emotional. And you could hear the same song and never give it a second thought, or maybe turn it off. You don't even like it. Like, what is the difference in perception and what we are experiencing versus what's actually happening? Just
No, this is good. Sit around the fire, drink bourbon, and talk about philosophy. So same thing. Like, you have a 2-year-old in the back seat in their car seat, and you install a little steering wheel, and then you're like, "Hey, bud, you're driving back there." Now look at it through the eyes of a 2-year-old. When you say they're driving, what do they think is really happening? They're convinced you just told them that they're driving.
Yeah.
So is it just fun where I get to do the same thing that he's doing? Is it fear? Like, holy shit, I'm going to crash this thing. I can't be responsible. Take the control back. But it's the utility of what you're being presented with. What do I do with it? So you tell Helen Keller that the stick, she's actually flying. And then when she's flying, like what would be
But what's flying?
What is flying, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the first words Helen Keller ever learned, because I was always interested in Helen Keller when I was younger, it was water. And her teacher would sign the word water in her hand and then put her hand in water. All she knows is this sensation is this finger movement.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
We know water probably to be something totally different than Helen Keller knows water. We know flight. Does Helen Keller know what flight is?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just insane that like if we are all perceiving things differently.
So hold on. Helen Keller, you take her to an amusement park, you put her on the Magnum. She straps in, right? And now you tell her that what you're about to feel as close that I can get to you as flight, right? What would she be experiencing? There would be noises that she can't hear.
There would be that, you know how you feel that thing in your stomach?
Well, that's important. Have you ever ridden the pirate ship?
I think so. I know what you're talking about. The thing that's like, whoosh,
so when you go forward, going down, you feel differently than when you go back.
Yeah.
So if you can't see it, like you can't see the ground rushing up at you and your brain chemically telling you that there's danger coming and feel in the pit of your stomach that something happens, but you're not looking at it and you're just going backwards, your body's like, oh, I feel like I'm taking a nap. You don't get the same rush of chemicals. So then would the experience be different? They would never be afraid. So their body would not flinch in going down the first hill on the Magnum. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Or like centrifugal force. Does that feel differently not seeing what's happening or knowing what's happening or Yeah, it's so interesting.
So you take your brain in the jar, you're not going to have sight, you're not going to hear things, you're not going to be able to feel skin. So no, there's no pleasure, there's no pain. Not gonna be taste anything, obviously. So there's literally no input information from all the things that all other human beings know. So you have access to a different set of thought information, frequencies and perceptions and imagination and things that your brain could still do. Man, I'd love to just for a day live in that and see what it's like.
And then if there is the idea that perceptions can differ, what do you do with the idea of, let's say, people who claim to be psychic or know things? There's a lot of probably controversy there. And is it all a show? Are they lying to you? Do people actually know things that other people don't know? Because how could you not if perception truly can differ and people can receive information differently, and I can know something that another human being has no way of knowing, and we know that can happen. Could then not someone else see something that we think is not there but is, feel something that we think is not there but is, know something, pick up on something? My husband and I were talking about coincidences last night, and I had couple years ago, a very extreme, major coincidence. A woman came into where I was working and said something to me that was so spot on, that was specific. Why? I don't know this person. There is this random person on this day talking to me, sought me out, and directly said something to me that I 110% knew what she was talking about. It was not something that could be skewed a certain way. It was not something that could be taken a different way. It was spot on. Absolutely, she knew something happening in my life and then just left. And I went, what is that? What is that? What is something like, can people just have information that other people don't have?
Sure, but probably not in the way that you want it to be.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What way do I want it to be? It's just sort of like a, holy crap. What? How did you know? Like, that's cool. It wasn't, I should do something. It wasn't, it's going to change my actions. It was, if anything, just validation that something was happening, of which I already sort of knew. But like, why would you, like, have you ever experienced a coincidence that was so spot on that you're like, this isn't just mathematical chance? Something caused this. something went into place.
Give me
for
details, because now I need to know what
Oh,
this woman said to
man.
you, because I'm going to judge it harshly on thinking, is this a mathematical probability, or can I replicate it? Can I do the same thing to you based on information that's available?
God, you're gonna ruin this for me.
Why?
Okay, I'm trying.
I can let you live with the mystery. If you don't want to tell me, that's fine.
Well, I'm trying to think of the details surrounding it now. Okay, at the time, I guess you could sort of have a religious context in it. I was sort of starting to go to church with some friends, was sort of in a bad place emotionally. My husband was in a bad place emotionally, had lost his brother. There was a lot of like grieving and kind of pulling back from God and religion and that idea at the same time. And it was just sort of this like era of maybe change that's not for the good that we were both experiencing. And I had sort of started this maybe creeping out of that hole, so to speak, of kind of got with this group of women, kind of got encouraged to go to church, kind of started looking at things differently. And I kept saying to myself, I think this would be good for him. I really want my husband to kind of come with me on this and start seeing things differently. And maybe I can help him with this sort of hole that he's in. And I feel like maybe I'm coming out of it and I'm seeing things differently and I can kind of bring him along with me. And this was sort of just like an unconscious thought and path in life I was on. So I'm at work one day, and in this group of offices, we had an office space for rent. And a woman came to meet with my boss about renting out that space. She brought someone else with her. We don't know why. We figured, they're just friends. They're probably out running errands today together. And she says, let me stop in with this meeting. You sit here for a minute. So she went in, met with my boss about this space, and her friend just sat there and looked at me. And other than, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. That was it. And she just started saying, oh, you have such a nice smile. And I said, oh, thank you. And she's like, you just have this way about you, this light about you. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. Thanks so much. And she's like, you got it and you don't even know it. And I said, what? And now I went, crazy lady, where's your friend? Crazy lady. And she went, and you're going to help your husband. And I said, and I just looked at her and she smiled. I was like, I have no idea what a coincidence that is that you said that. And she's like, I know. And then her friend came out and I'm just standing there like dumbfounded staring at this woman. And I look at her friend and I just go, I can't tell you what a coincidence it is that you just said that. And her friend's like, she does this with everyone. And she's like, I know. And they're like, well, thanks for the room. And I'm just like, why would you say that to me of all people at this time? And they left and they didn't rent the room. They never came back. I never saw them again. That was it. And for the longest time, I said, they weren't here for this room. She was here for me. And I still to this day believe that. Like, they came in for me. Her friend distracted this boss. They were doing whatever. That woman came in here for me. It was the most coincidental, spot on thing at that time in my life that I could have ever heard. And like, she could have said anything. She could have said literally anything. And it would have just been, okay, whatever. Who says, and you're going to help your husband, and just leaves. All right, destroy it.
Would our audience, do they want me to be mean?
And by the way, long story short, he did come along and get help and
be mean, or just say, oh, bless your heart.
There was a guy in the office right after that happened, another person who just happened to be there. And I was like, oh my God, that was so coincidental. And he's like, oh, party tricks. Anybody can do that. And I'm just like, you guys don't even and they didn't know the significance of it. We all just thought, oh, crazy lady. And I'm just like, they didn't know the history or anything. And I was just like, you guys, like, you have no idea the thoughts in my head leading up to that moment. And it's like she looked in my brain and was like, I know exactly what you're thinking and you're on the right track and you're going to do it. And I'm just like, wow, it's just too coincidental.
Okay, so let's kind of pick it apart a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm not going to try to make you feel bad about it.
Yes, you are.
I'm just
But
going to do what my
fine.
brain
Take
does.
away this
No, I'm not gonna take
amazing
your joy away,
moment.
I promise.
Okay.
Okay, so number one, do you think that you can give away information without using words?
Yes.
Okay, so what kind of information? Like you're wearing a wedding ring. What information do you think that gives away?
Yeah. Yeah. I look married, and I mean the way you dress, your posture, maybe how you act can give away all kinds
eye
of
movements. Do you think you move your eyes differently? Like when you lie, do you think you do one thing and you tell the truth, you do another thing?
Probably.
Get excited. How about facial features?
Yeah.
Posture, head,
posture,
tilt,
reactions.
So what a mentalist does is they need to do two things. They observe you, and when they ask you questions, they're looking at your response to those questions, and they don't ask you questions that are usually involved with the stuff that you're.
Sorry, there's breaking news that I
What?
just got distracted. BJ says breaking Diddy verdict. Count 1, racketeering, not guilty. Count 2, trafficking of Cassie, not guilty. This is a Diddy verdict. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution of Cassie, not
Or guilty.
Or guilty. Count 4, trafficking of Jane, not guilty. Count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution, Jane, guilty. This means Diddy has been acquitted of the most serious charges.
Yep. Breaking news here.
Oh, that Diddy.
Youngstown.
Breaking news.
And that is, and I didn't follow any of the court case because I didn't want to be exposed to what that was going to be said and done, because I don't think he's a nice person or a good person. I think he's kind of evil. But transportation seems like he was just an accessory to what was happening instead of the cause.
Transportation to engage in prostitution, guilty. Yeah, so he just drove her there.
We'll find out later, but just so all of you, I'm going to continue picking a
Yeah, Diddy's still a piece of crap. Back to my story. But thank you, BJ, for that.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So anyway, a mentalist would have a field day with you because number one, you would want to believe, and you are one of the most openly communicative people that I know information wise that have nothing to do with the words that you say. So I can elicit a response from you by asking a question and just watch what your body movements are. Whether you get defensive, whether it looks like you have an agreement, how your eyes twitch, like there's a billion different things. So some people are mentalists without knowing that they are doing that they observe things that are familiar. So when you ask something and they see an arms cross, like that's a defensive posture. And
which is funny. I don't feel defensive right now.
Listen, I don't need you arguing with factual things. So
it's just comfortable.
It's called defensive because when people feel like they are, their organs are going to be ripped out from them and they're going to be stabbed. Defensive posture means you cover it. You're feeling a little vulnerable. Doesn't mean you're defending against it. It means subconsciously you go into a position of comfort and security. And when people draw in versus like if I'm sitting here like a dog, so when they trust you, like expose your belly, they're not thinking you're going to murder them, right? So anyway, those are the types of things that mentalists take cues on. But those are
okay. Pause real quick. So then I have noticed. If I'm about to think something deeply, like I am seriously considering and about to go into a deep thought about something, I've noticed I'll do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily then you're saying defensive, but it's like,
okay, so what are you doing? You're about to go in your head to think about something, which means you're not going to be watching for dangers around you. You're now going to be busy doing other things. So you're protecting of your organs while you're in thought.
I'm about to be focused on one specific thing. Yep. I'll do that.
So your body responded by protecting your vital organs, and now you're free and safer to go into your thoughts.
Because I do that. I'll say, if someone asks me something really thought-provoking and I really am going to think, and I'll go like, or like, but yeah, I will sort of go, so does that then mean? And I'll do that.
Yeah. So anyway, so if I would roll back I would do the playback right now. This woman who walked in that office, was there any dialogue either directly to you or in the same room as you, or was she completely silent? Like paint the picture. When she walked in the room and you got first exposure, was there any conversations or anything that happened?
It was pretty much just the two women walked in. Boss came out. Hi, how you doing? Hi, nice to see you again. Kind of those niceties. My boss looked at the woman he was actually having a meeting with and was like, yeah, do you want to go back in my office and we'll talk about this stuff? And she's like, yeah, my friend's just going to sit here. Not a problem. Have a seat. Let me know. I probably said my name. I don't know. Let me know if you need anything. And they went off and I was just sort of at the front desk and she was just sort of hanging there. And then it was just she and I.
Okay. So if a mentalist is doing this on purpose, or a scam artist or a pickpocket, whatever, they will use their interactions and they will have conversations and do certain things, drop a book to make you look, have a talk to somebody else.
She was flattering. She started saying,
and
oh, nice smile and nice energy.
That's to get movement happening. So you can start gathering information about the movement that's happening. And then you key on the persons that are giving away the most information. If you key in on something that someone gave away, now you can jump on it. So that's the first part, is gathering all knowable information about the interaction. Second is probabilities. Okay. And this could work two ways. So if I took a common phrase like, you're going to help your husband, or whatever, what did she actually say?
Yeah. I think it was, and you're going to help your husband.
Okay. You're going to help your husband. And I take a group of 100 people, 100 women who are married, and I say those words to 100 women. Will any of them be able to backfill it in? What's your probability of every one of those 100 light bulb moment saying, yeah, my husband is going to?
Because one woman doesn't think their husband's got an issue with something that needs solved.
Probability.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe we're talking 95% of them are going to come to the conclusion that something that's happening right now involves their husband helping them on something. You'll fill the rest of the information in. She didn't need to. It could be helping you with the dishes. It can be helping you, go to the grocery store. It could be helping you, whatever. It can help you anywhere. So now, if I said what she said to you would apply to 95% of the people, did she have a high rate of success by saying that to you, or a low rate of success?
High rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she didn't have to glean very much information. In fact, she didn't probably have to interact with you to say something that had a 95% chance of landing directly in your life. And most people would say that there was a help moment, right?
Yeah. Why would she do this? Why? She didn't get anything out of it.
Do you think if you threw something and they think you're magical, if you threw something at it and someone would think you're magical, don't you think that the utility in that feels good to be thought of as some kind of magical thing?
Yeah, you think she did it for ego boost?
Well, when people get used to it, they notice we categorize things, right? So when we notice we can do something, we can create a generality, and our brain can calculate what the probable of me saying this to a certain person, and then get both you feedback and in me feedback of having guessed something that seemed very unguessable. And it doesn't have an engineering person like me to go around saying that applies to 95% of the people. Feels really magical, and magical feels freaking good. And even like if she liked that moment and she knew that, let's just say it was a 50-50 chance probability. So then all she'd really have to do is go to talk to 10 people, say the exact same thing to them, and feel good about the ones that she got right. Because that person doesn't know that. Like if you'd have followed her around, what if would you be disappointed?
She did. I think we then got in a conversation about how crazy coincidentally that was. And when her friend said, oh, she does do this, I think it's all coming back to me. I think I even said, well, do something about him. And she was trying to describe him. And I don't remember it being terribly accurate.
Okay. Would you be disappointed if after she left, you followed her and watched her say to 10 people, you're going to help your husband? Would you be
the same thing? Yeah.
The same thing.
It was the same thing.
You'd be disappointed, number one, that she did it more than once. So it didn't feel like a lightning strike that you thought it was. And number two, you'd be disappointed because every one of them said the same thing. Yeah, my husband is going to help me.
Have you not ever heard somebody say something that they did not do as a way of trying to read you or get you to feel some kind of way? It was just part of their everyday conversation. There's a perfectly logical explanation why they said something, but you went, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. Like, do you believe in sort of this idea of, could that have been something that even though you weren't trying to purposely convey something to me, but you did, and it's exactly what I needed in this exact moment?
It's not magical. If you took all
I'm
of
not saying it's magic.
I know, but if you took all of your senses away and you could only key on information that wasn't being delivered to you through regular traditional means, and you got really practice at being able to pick up frequencies that were very subtle, and then you got good at reading into those things and finding out how to apply to it, I am certain that when people go into states of meditation, or they get into prayer, or they really take all of their worldly senses away and try to connect with something else, they get information. What to do with it, I think some of them are kind of confused, but some people have the ability to translate that information to usable things here on this plane. Not very many of them.
So don't you think this woman could have possibly received information and did with it what she thought she was supposed to do?
Probability-wise, very unlikely that she was it. Those people are probably very few, and it wouldn't be a parlor trick. Right? It would be someone who's very serious about interpreting frequencies and information that regular people can't see or make sense of.
How do you know the difference between someone doing a parlor trick and someone just receiving that information? It wasn't for show. There wasn't an audience. It was just to me.
But it could have been a parlor trick to her that she kind of gets off a little bit.
Yeah.
She likes the interaction.
Look how cool I am.
Right. And I would say like she probably has a brain. I have a mathematical brain. So I see things in probabilities. I can look at something and my brain automatically spits out a number and calculates it. Mm-hmm. Your brain doesn't do that for you. So I have access to information that you don't. So I can make then decisions based on information that I have that you can't see. So a person who does it serious, you watch him or me, you watch me try to develop that ability to even crunch more numbers so I can make more guesses and I can use that utility more often. It's a more serious approach to something versus like I had a dream and I saw something and I don't know what to do with it. And I'm telling you, that would be more like a parlor trick because that's not, you're accidentally coming into that information. You're not trying to get that information. That would be the difference. So if you would have asked her, now do him, right?
Yeah.
Make a read on him. If you would watch her go into a whole process of connecting information, and sometimes she says, I just don't have the math to be able to say and do whatever it is that I did, versus like, oh, I'm connecting with something here. And you watch a process happen rather than her just like vomiting out in 2 seconds. It's pretty likely that it's just a little trick that she played.
I mean, she sort of just started talking when we're like, oh, what do you, she's like, I don't know. I think you're the kind of person who you probably are this and you're probably that and you do this and you do that. And again, some of that maybe, but there wasn't anything that was dead on like I felt with me. He was just like, I mean, not really.
You ever been around a mentalist, someone who really did it well?
No. I don't think so.
Yeah, you'll learn a lot about this by watching someone who really knows what they're looking for.
I would say, I guess on YouTube, I did see, I saw this video of this woman who claimed to be a psychic and she was with a guy who's like, psychics aren't real and this is all for show and watch, I can do it too. And started telling the host all this stuff. And the host was like, oh my God. And he's like, I'm not psychic. I literally just went a roundabout way of information that I could already take in from you and was so general that you filled it. Like he explained this whole thing. And again, I'm not saying I believe in psychics. I'm very skeptical. But my thing is, can other people actually, like you said, maybe she's just perceiving things. Maybe she's noticing things. Maybe information is being gathered from her. And it's maybe not in a way that she gets off on doing parlor tricks or she thinks it's whatever. But she truly is like, I am really getting a lot of info from you. And I just want to tell you this. I think it might be helpful.
Yeah. It's only two things. This is all about information and probabilities. If you can do information and probabilities. So if someone is wearing a watch, and then you can extrapolate what the probability of them being something else and using the information that you know to then use that information to get to other things. It's information and probabilities and concocting information, things that you can create versus what you can just get a sense of, whatever.
Yeah.
So my mathematical brain, does that information exist? Like, do you look at a window and see a number?
No.
It doesn't exist?
No. Unless I like wanted to count the panes or something on it.
Well, the way that it exists, if I can look at that window and see a number and I look at that window again and I see the same number, then that number exists. I just have to get to the piece of information that reveals that number. Just because you can't see red doesn't mean red is not there.
Yeah.
And you can replicate it over and over again and know here's what the information was and here's its probability of utility. Yes.
So there's a couple interesting comments.
Yes.
Jerry says, same thing. If I hold a door open for a person, it automatically makes the recipient think I was a nice person, but I could be a terrible person in reality. Yeah. Information. Julie says, what did you do with that experience, Kelin? Did you go the extra mile to help your husband? Well, the thing was, I was already in this process of that. I wouldn't say it changed anything I was doing or did. I think it maybe just validated that whatever was happening and whatever process we were about to follow was the right track, and that everything was going to work out okay, kind of thing. And that I could trust that any efforts I was thinking about attempting would not be futile.
Can I point out what Julie is doing here? Because that's an important after effect.
Yeah.
So part of the information is resonance and frequencies. And we talk a lot about that shit when we go to Crazy Town. Right?
Yeah.
And what Julie's pointing out is because that was said to you, a different framework was laid down in front of you about your thoughts and feelings. Now, can people get a sense for what a resonant frequency is? So if I walk up to someone and I'm like, Kellen's having a bad day, can I do certain things and get in line with the frequency that I can alter her? I can either constructively alter her or deconstructively alter her. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
And so once you know resonant frequencies that are not part of any of the senses that we have. I mean, what is the resonant frequency of my voice? Right. You kind of know what I'm talking about, and I can measure what the frequency is, but you don't know how to calculate that.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have a person that's knows the information that you're married, knows that the likelihood that they can say something that is going to resonate with you, right?
Mm-hmm,
and then make your life better or make you do something that's more validating or alter your actions. And like Jerry said, open the door, make somebody feel good and whatever. And you kind of get a blast of really great chemicals when you do that. Could you not get addicted to that process of saying generalized things to people that make them feel good? Like, how many times, I'm wondering, how many times do people go into the tarot card readings and they tell them bad things versus how many times they give them really great things? Like, you're going to have a baby, you're going to marry, you're going to have a bunch of money or whatever. How many times like, oh,
I wonder.
Your life is terrible and you're going to die.
Yeah. Like, sorry to break the news to you, but it ain't good. Yeah, I don't know if anyone ever gets a bad reading.
So in all of the probabilities that every life is going to be awesome, that you always get something good.
Isn't it funny that we started this show with saying you need to bring me down and I need to boost you up? What did I do? Talk about something that you love and gets you excited and in a great mood.
Space and mentalism and frequencies. And now you
rained on my parade.
See what we did?
Exactly what happened.
Somebody's going to watch these shows. Do you ever watch a movie that has like a great twist and it was a setup from the very beginning?
Yes.
And stuff you didn't know. And
you're like, oh,
got it. And then you watch it and you're like, how much of this do they know? And how much did they just make up on the fly? So now you get to figure out whether or not Kelin and I came in the show. And then I said, we're going to make this psychological thriller where we're going to populate the entire show with little Easter eggs that listeners in the future can find and think it was well concocted before the show began.
Somebody did say to me one time, they were very surprised that typically you and I do not have any discussion before we hit live, that it really is off the cuff and we just kind of verbal vomit and see where it goes. And they're like, oh, you guys don't talk about your subject matters and what you're going to say. And I was like, no, because we want it to be authentic. We want to actually see what comes out and where that conversation goes. And so I think that's interesting that.
Or Kelin is lying and the entire thing is contrived. And I have bullet points on a paper that's underneath this desk. I have a teleprompter over there that I'm reading off of now.
What's going to give us the most ratings and views? And then we just manipulate people into thinking it's casual.
I I truly hope we don't. For as much as we bounce around into different topics, I don't think that anybody could contrive this show.
Can you imagine if the ridiculousness that we put out there was planned? Like, let's think of the most ridiculous thing.
And drive
It's not, people, I assure you.
into it.
We just find ourselves in ridiculousness, and that's
all right. We're out of here. Have a good one, everybody. We'll catch you,
have a good
catch you
week.
tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.